President Cyril Ramaphosa will today deliver the eulogy at the funeral of the late former Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni. The official funeral will be taking place at Nkowankowa Stadium in Tzaneen in Limpopo. President Ramaphosa has declared a special official funeral category 2 in honor of Mboweni, who passed away last Saturday at the age of 65. Meanwhile, the funeral service for Rhema Bible church leader Pastor Ray McCauley will also get underway at the church in Randburg, north of Johannesburg this morning. President Ramaphosa has designated the funeral of Pastor Ray McCauley as a special provincial official funeral category 2. It followed Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi's request that the president honor the life of the pioneering religious leader. Now, he passed away on Tuesday, the 9th of October at the age of 75. So to look at the political legacy of Pastor McCauley and Tito Mboweni, as well as the passing of former Labour Minister Membathisi Mdladlana, we are now joined in the studio by SABC Political Editor Mzwandile Mbeje, of course, to unpack further. Good morning.
Good morning.
I dare say good morning at this point. What a somber week, somber few weeks it's been around the country. But we're obviously also here to come in and commemorate, pay tribute and respect to their life and times. But I mean, Membathisi Mdladlana, having passed away, you know, him being the successor to Tito Mboweni. I mean, there must be a party of sorts happening on the other side.
Well, absolutely. In fact, it was very, I mean, as soon as the news broke that he had passed away, I mean, earlier this week, he had actually been featured on one of our platforms to speak about Tito Mboweni, because he is the one who took over after Tito Mboweni. Yes. And, you know, by his own very nature, he was a very fiery individual. Yes. So you could sense what, I mean, he felt. But little did we know that, I mean, in the next few days, it was going to be himself. So, yeah, clearly, as you are saying, perhaps they're having some sort of a party up there.
There's a reunion of sorts.
But, I mean, on a serious note, and I think as much as, obviously, the country is mourning, I think there is a sense of celebrating their contribution. I mean, if you look at all these three individuals, so there's a sense of really celebrating their contribution to the kind of a country that we have. Yes. I mean, Membathisi Mdladlana, I remember him very well. He was, I think, was the first SADTU president, actually the founding member, founding president of SADTU. Very, very fiery. I remember those speeches when SADTU would mobilize towards this kind of a democracy that we're having. So that is the kind of individual he was until he obviously got into Parliament in 1994 and being appointed minister. And then even beyond that, Lizal, he was then made ambassador, I think, of Burundi, and then later on in Canada.
Yes.
And you know, the other aspect, I think I was chatting with my colleagues earlier, I think when the news broke, when he was the ambassador or the high commissioner in Canada, he actually used to be very fiery on Twitter as well. So, and then there's a lot that, I mean, I thought about when that happened, to say he would take on issues, he would take on individuals, and then like how did prominent on Twitter, not necessarily fighting with people, but it was very prominent.
Well,
and,
speaking of social media, I mean, you know, as we look at the life and times of Tito Mboweni, he became the Duke of Mahuba's Kloof, as he was affectionately known. He was also the social media chef extraordinaire with his tinned fish and chicken and loads of garlic. But ultimately, his contribution to South Africa's democratic dispensation, I mean, from Labour Minister to then the first black SARB governor to then finance minister to stabilize the country in 2018. And then wearing all those many other hats. I mean, how would you encompass his legacy? Is it even fair to condense it in such a few minutes?
You know, he was such an interesting individual. And then he had so many aspects of his life to him, you know. As a freedom fighter, I mean, people will tell you so how committed he was. And that's why, I mean, earlier our colleagues were indicating so how he went through, how he dropped from university and continued elsewhere, how he went to Lesotho, eventually going to the UK to further the studies, and then, of course, push the struggle. But also, and then at the age of 34, he was then made the Minister of Labour, and the kind of of privileges, if I may put it that way, the basic conditions of employment that many of South Africans enjoy. So he was, I mean, one of the people who crafted that. So that told you something about the kind of a person he was. But this is the other aspect about him that many people may not even know. You know, when he was the governor of the Reserve Bank, so he used to be so strict. I mean, in terms of particularly how you conduct yourself, how you were, even the taking of pictures. So there was a certain way of how you had to behave towards that institution. So that is Tito Mboweni for you. And then later on, so we got to know him about when he had left public office, and then he started doing the cooking things. But then the country faced a difficult situation when the president had appointed Mdladlana to be the finance minister. But then there was the Zondo Commission, which then somehow implicated Mdladlana in that one. So then he decided to say, you know what, I'm going to step out. And the finance portfolio is very, very, very key. That is why when he, when even the former President Mandela was to take over, they were very careful in how they managed that transition from, I think, the former Minister of Finance, Trevor
Manuel?
No, before Trevor Manuel, I just forget his name. Yeah, but they had to manage it in such a manner, in a way that it doesn't rattle the markets. So I'm actually making this example because now you have a situation that is difficult with the finance minister. We had an example of what happens when the finance minister gets just changed like that. You remember the Des Van Rooyen situation?
Yes.
So it had to be managed in a particular way because you don't want to then rattle the markets. But because of who he was, of the kind of contribution, of the trust that not only the political people trusted, but even the business community, even the markets had trust in him. That's why it was so easy. He took over as the finance minister just a few days before that budget speech. And then it took, I mean, when you were listening to that budget speech, you'd think he had been there for quite some time. So that is the kind of a person he was. But also, Lizelle, not lost on him was that he knew he had played his part. So he would want the younger generation to take over. That is why he personally went to the president to say, I think I've done my bit. So would you release me so that the younger generation could take over?
Well, it's to your point of him protecting the integrity of the institution and perhaps also some of his contributions, you know, how the Monetary Policy Committee handles repo rates, having introduced that target inflation of between 3% and 6%. The social relief of distress grant, which continues to assist South Africans, you know, post-COVID-19 as well. I wonder also when we look at, you know, some of his personal mandates when it comes to inclusive growth and sustainable growth as well. I mean, he's very intentional about our agency as a continent as well. His work in Rwanda, his work, you know, across the globe to really make sure that Africa itself is sustained.
In fact, as you are speaking, I'm actually even thinking about the two-pot system that everybody's enjoying. So that, I mean, he is the one who came up with that. Yeah. And then, of course, he had to leave, and then the next minister then took over.
Yes, and that's why we continue to pay respects to all of them at this hour. I know we still haven't delved into Ray McCauley just yet, but we've here for the special broadcast here on Morning Live Edition, and we'll continue to bring you that rolling coverage as we crisscross the country.